Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Swamiji.
Good evening,
Pranam Maharaj.
Noel. Good evening, Noel. Yes. Good evening. How last time you were missing? You went to Southern California again?
Yeah, I had to go down to Ridgecrest, and then I drove back up 395 on Sunday. So I drove like 900 miles.
Oh my God. Good morning to you, Mrs. Mukherjee.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Yes, yes. Mrs. Mukherjee, good morning to you. Yes.
Huh?
Yes, Bishalakshmi ji. Good evening. Good evening. Today is Good Friday. Devanjali, good morning to you.
Thank you. Good evening to you.
Yes. Vijaya ji, good evening.
Good evening, Swamiji. How are you?
I am great. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good.
Good.
Today is kind of warm.
Yeah, today is warm. Arundhati, good evening.
Good evening, Maharaj.
Sacramento or San Francisco?
Sacramento.
Okay. Suresh ji, Suresh Mehta ji, good evening.
Namaste, Swamiji. Good evening.
How is your weather? It is better than here, surely.
It's in 80s even then.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Lalita ji, good.
Yes,
Good
Pranam.
morning.
Good morning. Good morning
Yes.
from Bangkok.
Yes, yes. Good morning. You told me it is 8:30 there?
Yes, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, okay. Very good. Paul and Linda, good evening.
Good evening, Swami.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, good evening. Betty, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. Johnson.
Good evening.
Good evening, Gunamai.
Good evening, Swami.
Yes, yes. Barbara, good evening. Sundarji, good evening.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Yes, yes. All right. Good evening to, have I said good evening to everybody? It appears so. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's begin with the chanting. I wish I could keep you all, unmuted. We could chant together. The problem is in Zoom, it will be a problem. Lot of echo and cacophony, background noise. So otherwise it would have been nice if we would have, chanted together and could hear each other's voice. All right. Who have joined later on? Oh, Victoria. Good evening, Victoria. Oh, Victoria. Yes, yes. I am muted. Okay. Anna, good evening. Yes. All right. So today we shall chant all the 3-piece chants, 1, 2, and 3, without the English translations. First one we shall chant together. The other two we shall chant first in call and response, then together. Let us start with this. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhitam Astu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shantihi, Shantihi. This one, call and response. Okay. Om Sham No Mitra Sham Varunaha. Om Sham No Mitra Sham Varunaha. Sham No Bhavattaryama. Sham No Bhavattaryama. Sham Na Indro Brihaspatihi. Sham Na Indro Brihaspatihi. Sham No Vishnu Rurukramaha. Sham No Vishnu Rurukramaha. Namo Brahmane. Namo Brahmane. Namaste Vayo. Namaste Vayo. Tvameva prataksham brahmasi. Tvameva prataksham brahmasi. Tvameva prataksham brahma vadishyami. Tvameva prataksham brahma vadishyami. Ritam vadishyami. Ritam vadishyami. Sattam vadishyami. Satyam vadishyami. Tanmamavatu. Tanmamavatu. Tatvaktaramavatu. Tatvaktaramavatu. Avatu mam. Avatu mam. Avatu vaktaram. Avatu vaktaram. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Now we shall chant it together. Om Sham No Mitraha Sham Varunaha. Sham No Bhavattaryama. Sham Na Indro Brihaspatihi. Sham No Vishnu Rurukramaha. Namo Brahmane. Namaste Vayo. Tvameva prataksham brahmasi. Tvameva prataksham brahma vadishyami. Ritam vadishyami. Satyam vadishyami. Tanmamavatu. Tadvaktaramavatu. Avatu mam. Avatu vaktaram. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Now, peace chant 3. Okay. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha. Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Yatraha. Bhadram pashyemakshaviryayatraha Sthirairangaistuštuvagam shastanubhihi Sthirairangaistuštuvagam shastanubhihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu Shastina Indro Briddhashavaha Sastina Indro Briddhashavaha Shastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Shastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Shastina Starksho Arishtanemihi Shasti Nastarksho Arishtanemihi Shastino Brihaspatirdadhatu Shastino Brihaspatirdadhatu Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. All right, now together. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashe Maksha Virya Yatraha Sthirairangaistuštuvagam Shastanubhihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu Shastina Indro Briddhashavaha Shastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Shasti Nastarksho Arishtanemihi Shasti no Brihaspati Dadhatu Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. So good evening to all whom I could not greet earlier, who joined later on. I see Manish Chakravarti from New York. Good evening. John, good evening. Yes. Mr. and Mrs. Carmen, good evening. Parekji, good evening. And Vidyaji. All right. So one thing about the chanting is sometimes you might be surprised that why I am, lowering my tone. For example, Bashema Deva Hitam Yadayuhu. So this is called intonation. So Vedic chanting has an intonation. One flat, one down, under, one is the normal tone, another is a lower pitch, another is higher. This is the three. And all the scripts come with these intonation marks. The problem is in English transliteration, it already has got transliteration marks. Like A is written in transliteration A with a mark above, and that intonation marks, if is given again, that intonation marks also come with dash, flat line or. So that will make the script very complicated for you to follow. So what we have to follow now when we are learning, just, by way of practicing, later on we can fine tune it to the real intonation. That is about chanting. And it takes time. Once, when we, at first it appears very difficult. When I first became, joined, and I thought of giving up. So difficult, but then it became as natural as anything. So everybody can learn it. If I could, it means everybody could can. Okay, now Narada Bhakti Sutra, we have so far studied 8 aphorisms. So what is devotion? It is ecstatic love, supreme love for divine being, and that divine being has not been yet defined. It's personal, impersonal, there, here, everywhere. So whatever one's concept about God, a supreme love, supreme dedication, ecstatic love for that reality, for that being, that truth is bhakti. And bhakti here is para bhakti. Bhakti as the goal, the highest degree of bhakti. And which is the nature of immortality. After having had that kind of devotion, one transcends the fear of death, one finds all fulfillment and total contentment in life, and one becomes kind of intoxicated, absorbed in that love. Such is the attraction of that love. People love to be absorbed in that love. And last time we saw in that aphorism 7 and 8 that this desire, this love is not driven by any other desire. There is no other expectation, and there is no desire for attainment of anything else other than love of God. And when that kind of devotion arises in our heart, every act becomes sacred, because every activity is centered around God consciousness. So everything is sacred, everything is holy when that kind of love arises in our heart. So for us, no doubt, it is difficult to conceive of such love. Someone asked me that it is really frightening, getting intoxicated, going mad of that love. It is really so frightening. The thing is, yes, for us, it may appear to be frightening, difficult to conceive, difficult to imagine, but such is the nature of love. And we should remember that whatever is being spoken about the characteristics of that love, all are indications only. But at the very beginning, it was said that nature of that love is really ineffable, cannot be expressed, because language fails there. Language fails. It does not correspond to anything that we know about. We can just compare for the sake of understanding, but that is the nature of that para bhakti, divine love. And it is only can be experienced by someone it can be only understood by someone who has experienced this divine love. And now today we shall study 2 aphorisms, aphorism 9 and 10. Aphorism 9, 10 and 11 are correlated. In aphorism 9, Narada introduces 2 terms which are characteristics of this supreme love, and in the 2 aphorisms he sheds more light on these 2 terms. In accordance with the sutra literature, any new term is introduced, and generally, if that term has got many connotations, what exact connotation the author is going to emphasize here, that sometimes they explains in the next aphorisms. Whenever there is a term like that which has been introduced for the first time, they go on explaining, go in detailing what that term is. So today we shall see two more characteristics of this Parabhakti, supreme devotion, which is rather intensity of divine love. What happens? What is that intensity of divine love? Let us see the aphorism. So the aphorism is Tasmin Ananyata Tad Virodhishu Udasinata Cha. If we break it down, this is this. Tasmin Ananyata Tat Virodhishu Udasinata Cha. All right. So this is the syntax. Ananyata tasmin cha udasinata virodhishu tat. So first word is ananyatya. This is one of the characteristics of devotion. We shall see it later on in details. Ananyata means one-pointedness. One-pointedness. One-pointedness in what? Tasmin. That is, in that divine love. And cha means and, we know, cha. And udasinata. This is another characteristics. Udasin means indifferent. Udasinata means indifference to. Indifference to what? Virodhishu. Virod means opposed or other. Things opposed to tat. Tat means that. That is divine love. Or we may even say God. So to put it all together, Parabhakti is one-pointedness in that devotion and indifference to things opposed to that devotion. All right, let us see the aphorism. So as I said, this aphorism speaks about two characteristics of this Parabhakti, this supreme love. And let us always keep in mind that this is about the highest state of bhakti. Highest state of bhakti. And we might have difficulty in understanding, in conceptualizing. But this is the fact, what happens. One is ananyata, one-pointedness. This word ananyata, little bit of grammar. Anya means other. Okay. Anyata means otherness. And an is a prefix, which is a negative prefix. So not otherness. Ananya means not other. Not other. And ananyatya, it becomes the adjective. So no, or noun, it becomes noun. Ananyata means not otherness, that is one-pointedness. One-pointedness. So what does this ananyata means? No, not only one-pointedness, Ananyata also means unification or integration. Okay, so let us try to understand this word Ananyata from 3-4 angles. One is integration of all our faculties towards God. All the faculties, will, our thoughts, our emotion, our deeds. So Ananyata means in that type of love, all the faculties of our human being all get integrated to God, towards God. Will towards God, deeds related to God, thoughts related to God, emotions related to God. Okay, so that is an integration of personality. Sri Ramakrishna said, that a true devotee, there is no theft in the sanctum of heart. That means, in the sanctum of heart means we may say that we love God or we want to love God, but our activities do not correspond to that. Okay, we may resolve to do this much of spiritual practice, but again, when we have the resolve, the will, but fail to carry it out. So integration means all have been integrated. For a true devotee, their will, their emotions, their thought, activity, their words, everything have been integrated in one thing, that is divine love. In that, they have all become merged on one. And Sri Ramakrishna gave one example. He said that a devotee should try to channel or turn all their passions towards God. It is difficult to get rid of the passions. We all have passions. For example, he said that we have greed. Okay, so feel greedy for divine love. Greedy for divine love, or greedy for God realization, greedy for real spiritual experience. Okay, then ego is difficult to get rid of. We have ego. We cannot live without ego. The Sri Ramakrishna says, okay, let that ego remain connected with God. Okay, that I am God's devotee. I am God's friend, or whatever relationship you love to have with God, have that kind of ego. Then we have the sense of, ownership. This is mine. This is I, this is mine. Aham mama, I and mine, which is a great obstacle because we cannot get rid of that. Sri Ramakrishna says, associate with God. Say my Rama, my Krishna, call God my own, my Rama, my Krishna. Then if we have pride, and we cannot get rid of that. So Sri Ramakrishna says, if you have to have pride like Vibhishana, who said, I have touched the feet of Rama, so I will not bow this head before anyone else. So I have touched the feet of God. I have loved God. So what do I lack? This kind of pride. So everything, every feeling, every activity, how every emotions that can be directed, channeled, or integrated in through God, through love. Then second meaning of one-pointedness is God or spiritual life becomes priority, topmost priority. We all have, different degrees of priorities to many things. We also have priorities for spiritual practices in whatever way we like to do it. But in such a state, God alone or spirituality alone becomes the topmost priority. All other priorities become secondary. That also means ananyata, one-pointedness. Then, so for a true devotee, God is primary priority for them, highest priority. And their main purpose of life is also becomes God. That is, they are attracted towards the imperishable, the eternal entity, attracted toward that, the entity which is imperishable, which is eternal. And God becomes value of all values. God becomes value of all values. The most valuable things for such a devotee, for a devotee who is in Parabhakti, the greatest value is God. And God is the ideal of all ideals. To give an example, so anything is valuable to them insofar as it is related to God or spiritual life. Okay. So Swami Vivekananda, when he just started coming to Sri Ramakrishna, and he was a sincere seeker after spirituality, Sri Ramakrishna wanted to test, what kind of yearning Swami Vivekananda really had. So one day Sri Ramakrishna said that I have some mystical powers. Okay, I have some mystical powers that I have acquired through many years of spiritual practices and realizations. Would you like to take any of them? It will help you a lot. Then Swami Vivekananda immediately said, will they help me in the path of God realization, to have devotion? Sri Ramakrishna said, no, none of them will help you. Swami Vivekananda immediately said, I don't want any of them. So anything for anyone else, such mystical powers, which are, we know that ultimately Sri Ramakrishna gave Swami Vivekananda all these powers, but such lucrative things, mystical powers, Swami Vivekananda found no value in them because it would not help him towards God realization. Okay, so this is what meant, but ananyata, one-pointedness, the God becomes the primary purpose, the primary priority. It is like, driving high speed in a very narrow lane, like a HVO, HOV, right? High occupancy vehicle lane. Okay, so when we are driving very fast in that kind of lane, our focus, our mind becomes very much one-pointed, because we know it is extremely important to remain focused on the lane. So other distractions are tuned out automatically. Other distractions, automatically we tune out. Everything has value as far as they are concerned with keeping me in my lane, right? So we look at the car beside us only to see that we are in a safe distance. We look back how far the car behind us. So everything else has only value with regard to this, because we are moving in a very fast, moving very fast and very in a narrow lane. And so other things automatically are tuned out. That is the meaning of the second phrase of this aphorism. Indifference to things other than God. Tad virodhishu udasinata. Indifference to things other than God. So they go hand in hand. So For such a devotee, they are indifferent to, they are attracted to the imperishable, eternal reality, but indifferent to perishable, transient things. Now, indifference does not mean ignoring other things, not ignoring family, not ignoring friends, not ignoring other people. It is but seeing God in all of them. Okay, we love our friends. I love my family members. I love people because I see God in them. Okay, this is again, remember, for a person who has already attained that kind of state. Okay, but again, as I saw, as we noted earlier, these things which are natural for them is something for us to emulate as far as we can do. So every relationship, it is not that we are ignoring other relationship, rejecting other relationships. Indifference does not mean that, but all these things are valuable as long as I can connect all the relationship through and in God. You know, Sri Ramakrishna used to love Swami Vivekananda a lot, and more than, as it appeared, more than anybody else. So Swami Vivekananda sometimes used to feel embarrassed about that. One day, he complained that, why do you love me so much? So many people come here. Why do you love me so much? Immediately, Sri Ramakrishna said that the day I won't see God in you, I won't even look at you. I love you because I see God's reflection in you, God's reflection in you, God's manifestation in you, and probably more than others. That's why I love you. But the day I will see as a human being only you, I would not even look at you. So this is we having relationship through God alone. Then indifference also does not mean ignoring the duties that we have to do, but rather doing all works and duties as service to Lord. Whatever we do, whatever we think, whosoever we are related to, all these are centered in God, as we saw earlier. That is the real meaning of indifference to others. So this is something important. Indifference, the word may immediately bring to our mind, not caring about or ignoring. No. It is rather ignoring mundane relationship, mundane sense of work or duty, but all these are valuable because all are centered in God. Sri Ramakrishna gave one example. It is how it is we can think of this, that Sri Ramakrishna says that a true devotee can connect everything with God, or always can keep God at the back of their mind, no matter what they are engaged in, no matter whomsoever they are dealing with. He gave that if you have toothache, and whatever might be you are doing, a part of your mind is on your toothache. Okay, so that is this parabhakti. Whatever we are doing, whomsoever we are relating to, all are fine, but always God is in the back of our mind. Then indifference also means indifference to other worldly ambitions, worldly goals. They are indifferent to them. So indifference to social prosperity, social status, a true devotee, for whom that kind of love, what people will think about me if I become mad in love of God. So all these goals, all these things that bother us will stop to bother that person. So the only goal is to love God and remain intoxicated with it. So summary of the aphorism is that when the Parabhakti dawns in our heart, God becomes primary, or the spiritual reality becomes primary to us, everything else becomes secondary. This is the crux of this aphorism. Tasmin ananyata, one-pointedness in that means devotion or God or any spiritual reality with whatever our conception of God is, and other things becoming secondary. So no doubt it is a very high stage, but that is the benchmark. That is our goal. And in the next aphorism, what this one-pointedness means. So Narada will clarify. Rather, we shall get another viewpoint of this term one-pointedness. Another angle of looking at one-pointedness. The aphorism is like this. Anna ashrayanam tyago ananyata. So if we break it down, anya ashrayanam tyagaha ananyata. Ananyata tyaga anya ashraya nam. So the meaning is ananyata, one-pointedness, means tyagaha, giving up, anya, all other, ashrayanam. So ashraya is the word which means support. Now ashrayanam is plural, supports. So one-pointedness means of the previous aphorism? One-pointedness means giving up all other supports. All right. So as we say, this aphorism clarifies what one-pointedness is, and looking at this one-pointedness from another point of view. What is that? This is all about support. In our present state of being, we have many support systems, right? A good health is a support, family support, circle of friends is support. Then our community is a support, bigger and bigger. Even our state, our country is support for us. Support means when we are in difficulty, they are of great help to us. They will bail us out. Whenever there is a crisis, they are of great help, and that is perfectly needed. We all need this help, support system. The more support system we have, the more dependable support system we have, the more secure we are, especially at the time of crisis. But at the highest state of a devotee who has had this kind of ecstatic love for God, for them, only support is God. God alone is the support. Their total dependence is on God alone. Totally, they are dependent on God alone. In rain or in shine, always they're totally dependent on God. here is one verse we repeat often here. Tameva matacha pita tvameva, tameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva, tameva vidva dravinam tvameva, tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. You are my father, you are my mother, you are my friend, you are my companion, and you are my wealth, you are my knowledge. Not only that, you are my all in all. So all support is from God. And Sri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, such a devotee, and curiously enough, he uses the same word, ananya, that is one who is totally one-pointedly devoted to me. For such a devotee, I take care. I take care of devotees' needs. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 22, oft quoted, Anannas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupashate tesham nitta abhiyuktanam yoga shemam bahami aham. So those who always think of me, whose mind is always absorbed in me, I provide what they lack and preserve what they already have. That is a great assurance from God. And we see that in the life of devotees, how they are protected by God. God takes care of the devotees, and when they are in difficulty, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in big ways. Sometimes we can recognize that, help, that support. Sometimes we may not recognize even. This is, a fact for every devotee, whatsoever. Not a big devotee, not a great devotee, but whosoever has, howsoever much dependence on God, we see that God helps us in different ways, small ways. For example, suppose a great something could have happened, great calamity could have happened, but instead we had some little something. Okay, trifle, we can say nothing. Just yesterday someone told me, or day before, that she was, in her home, she was trying to get up, and there was something, a nail or maybe a latch, which could have easily hit her eyes or temple. Rather, it hurt her strongest part of the our head, above skull, and there was nothing whatsoever. But I say, this is how, God helps us. Just 1 inch below, and it could have done, who knows what. This is how God helps us. So in our present state, there's no doubt, total dependence on God may sound really skeptical things. We feel we have agency and we have to take charge of the things. But remember, we are talking about people who have surrendered everything to God. And the greatest thing is, philosophically too and experientially too, those who depend on God, contrary to what we think, they have greatest strength in their life, tremendous strength. Okay, because they always know that infinite strength is behind me, protecting me. Okay, and Ramanuja, the great philosopher of qualified non-dualism, who is more into devotion, he says something very striking here. He says, according to him, we are part of God. God is the whole, and we are all part of God. So, being dependent on God is natural for us, because we are the part of the whole. And when we are dependent on the whole, the real strength comes from that. Okay, Advaitin, non-dualists won't agree with that. They would say dependence on impersonal Brahman, and we are not different from each other. But for a devotee, this dependence is the greatest strength. So Tyaga, so one-pointedness means, according to this aphorism, giving up all other supports. So it does not mean rejecting the supports of family, friends, and others. It means increasing recognition of the fact that although very helpful, but all those supports are fragile, unpredictable, and cannot be always depended upon. Okay, and we see that how supports fail sometimes, and also we see that all these supports are actually nothing but divine grace alone. Divine grace working through these supports. That is what a devotee comes to realize more and more. That all the supports that I am counting upon, nothing but divine grace alone, that are manifesting as these different types of supports, and God helps really mysteriously. So Bhakta recognizes that God is the only bank that will never fail. God is the only bank which will bail out all the other banks. And Bhakta recognizes that if there is only one basket where we would like to put all our eggs, that is God. That is the only one basket we can put all our eggs in it. And as I said, tremendous strengths come from this total dependence on God. Okay, we see that again and again in the life of prophets, and how great devotees, how fearless they are, and what tremendous amount of work and courage they can show even at the face of death. I like to conclude, one example of Swami Ranganathananda. Swami Ranganathananda, some of you might have heard, was president of our order, but he was renowned for his oratorial skill. He's a great orator. And he has traveled all over the world several times. He was, in fact, India's cultural ambassador for many years. And it is said hardly there has been any university in the world where he has not spoken. So he was a great orator, but is a great devotee and great strength. So when he was in Rangoon, Rangoon, which is Rangoon now, or probably Burma now, right? It is Burma, right? Yes, at that time it was Rangoon. So we had a center there, and Ranganathanji was in charge of that center. And he was very popular there. All the government officials knew him. And suddenly this, Second World War came, or some problem came. I forgot the historical perspective. So the government of Rangoon told all the Indians have to leave Rangoon. Okay, they have to return to India. And all of them have to travel barefoot. I mean, walking. There was no available transportation for all those people of Indian diaspora over Rangoon. But higher officials told Ranganathananda ji that, Swami, you can go by a flight. We are arranging flight for you. Then he said, are you arranging for all the people who are leaving? They said, no, that I cannot do. Then he said, then I also won't go. I also won't go by flight. I will go with them, walking. Okay, so I think he walked for a month with them. And with very hardships. Myanmar, Burma, Yangon, Rangoon. Okay, Myanmar. Now it is Myanmar. Where, what is Myanmar now? Unrest is going on again there. So probably for a month he worked with them, and his another motive was to serve the people, with whom he was working. They needed service, help in whatever way he can help them, like with medical aid or whatever. And he also, for several days, he went without food. He ate leaves, whatever leaves he found in the on the way, in the forest. And when he reached Calcutta, his weight was 30 pounds. 30 pounds. 30 pounds or probably 40 pounds, something like that. Reduced to a skeleton. Okay. And so immediately he was sent to a hospital, and where he recovered, but his digestive system never recovered because of, eating all those things he did not know, and water, no good water, whatever water. His digestive system from that early age on till he left his body at the age of 97 or 98, he always had a very poor digestive system. It was totally destroyed because of that. So later on, the Swamis asked him that, why you did not agree to come by, flight, by a plane? And how did you, what gave you the courage that you will be all right, even if you did not know when you will reach India walking? Then he said, look, I have had and I have a total confidence that if God kills, nobody can save. And if God protects, nobody can kill. Okay, so I had total dependence on protection of God. That if God wills, nobody can harm me, nobody can kill me. And that was the source of my strength. So I told this story only to say that we may think that giving up agency and depending upon God means weakness or not having enough strength, but it is just contrary, because our individual strength, individual courage are limited only, limited. But as soon as we feel that there is an eternal reservoir of strength and protection behind us, that strength knows no bound. So that is ananyata, that is one-pointedness. Another way of looking one-pointedness is total dependence on God and not on any other support. Total dependence on God. And the next aphorism will speak what indifference means. Okay, we saw the general meaning of one-pointedness and general meaning of indifference. One-pointedness is total priority to God, making God the primary focus of life. And indifference means that connecting to others, doing all other duties, all related to God alone. So everything is valuable only if they are related to God. And we saw the special meaning of this one-pointedness as total dependence on God. And next aphorism will speak what is the special meaning of indifference to other things, that we shall see later on. Any question?